Okay, so one of my favorite thin sets is made by Ardex X5. Really, there's one tier higher than that, that's X77. That is really premium, but it's pretty expensive. But X5 is really like my everyday thin set for wall tile. I do use it for floors as well, but floors don't take as much, there isn't as much need for a non-sag quality as you do walls. When you start setting tile on the walls, the more weight that it has, the more it wants to slide down the wall. And if you have a non-sag thin set, it'll make it a lot easier setting those tile and not having them move on you, especially if you have a mosaic. But the days of just mixing thin set to what you think is the right consistency or what it visually looks like is no longer here. You have to measure the amount of water for each thing. They really put a lot of science into this stuff anymore, and it might look thin enough for you or thick enough, either way, but then once it starts to slack, which is the time period it takes to get to the true consistency, it might be thicker than you want it to be, and you can't add water later on. There's no adding water later on. The water is mixed at the beginning of the process, and that's it. You can't add it later on. So make sure you pay attention to the back of the bag. We're going to be using 6x6 smaller tile, so I'm going to be going with a looser mix. Basically, this Ardex is between 6 and 7 quarts. I'm just going to go right in the middle at 6.5 quarts per bag. And then if you want to do half bags, obviously you do it appropriately for the amount of thin set that you use. But really, you're going to get the best consistency and ability to get this mixed right if you have if you're mixing a full bag. So, you know, when you get into this, I would recommend trying to do enough tile that you're using that whole bag. All right, so let's get 6.5 quarts here. Okay, so you can see that it's a fairly thick consistency. So using the flat side of the trowel, I would recommend just burn it into the substrate. Okay, and then you want to we're going to be using a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch trowel. Most of the time I set my tile with the same thickness of trowel on the smaller tiles, but this isn't always the best way to know whether you need it. I'll show you here in a minute. We'll spread this thin set first. So make sure all your ridges are all in the same direction. Okay, so one way so these 6x6s I would always back water a little bit too, but just to start this out, to make sure you have the right trowel size, is just stick a piece on here and see what kind of coverage you're going to get. So that's pretty good coverage. You want to have 95%. When you see this all suctioning off like that, that means you have really good coverage. I have a little bald spot here, but basically as long as 95% of this entire area is covered in thin set, that's what you want it to look like.